I'm Eric Shawn. This is a brand new hour of America's News Headquarters.
And I'm Arthel Neville. Earlier today, the president visited the memorial at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii before heading to Japan. But of course, North Korea's nuclear threat will be the most serious issue the president will address when he arrives in the region. Kevin Cork is live in Tokyo with the latest. Kevin?
Hey, you're right about that. Clearly, security cooperation and North Korea will be the major headlines as the president makes his way here for his very trip to Asia, his very first trip here to Asia. And clearly, the administration would love to get consensus on what to do about Pyongyang. But I think a best case scenario, Arthel, frankly speaking to White House officials, is what they're really hoping for is just an understanding that the U.S. will do what it needs to do, but will certainly consult with partners here in the region, especially here on the peninsula, before making any major movement toward Pyongyang. Now, as you pointed out, the president is coming and an opportunity for the U.S. administration. After Japan, it's off to South Korea. Then the president will be obviously in search of a united front against North Korea before making his way over to Beijing, where once again he's expected to pressure Chinese President Xi Jinping to get tougher on Pyongyang. The president will also make a couple of stops in Vietnam and then extend his Philippines stay by at least a day before heading home. Now, we talk about security cooperation, but there's another major agenda item on the table here, and that's trade. Much of the talk obviously around China, but keep in mind the U.S. has a pretty significant trade imbalance with Japan as well. $51 billion this year alone, and that's just according to the latest figures through August. That's the last month available. So the president's likely to try to hammer out a more favorable trade environment for U.S. goods and services here with Japan as well. Now, earlier this afternoon, the president, as you pointed out, left Hawaii for this 5-country 11-plus day trip here to Asia, longest, by the way, for an American president in a quarter century. Now, before coming this way, the president was briefed by the leadership from U.S. Pacific Command when he was over in Hawaii. Then he joined his wife, First Lady Melania, for a visit to the memorial at Pearl Harbor. And I want to share a picture. This is also from the memorial. White House Chief of Staff John Kelly, whose son was killed while serving in the Marine Corps in Afghanistan. He was also at the memorial, a solemn reminder of the sacrifice that so many have made on behalf of a grateful nation. Now, in case you're wondering what happens once the president gets here, he really hits the ground running, guys. I mean it. He's got a working lunch coming up. Obviously, there'll be bilateral talks during his time here and a little 19th hole diplomacy as the president has a little golf time with his good friend Shinzo Abe. A lot to discuss. And, of course, I'll be here for you with all the details. But for now, back to you.
And we will look forward to your upcoming updates for us. Kevin Cork there live in Tokyo. Thank you so much. Eric?
Meanwhile, back in Washington, there's a firestorm of controversy following those claims by former acting DNC chair Donna Brazile. You know, she painted a pretty grim picture of the Democratic Party during the campaign in 2016. In her new book, Ms. Brazile backs up allegations by others that the race for the Democratic nomination was, as many suspected, tipped in Hillary Clinton's favor. Ellison Barber has more now from Washington.
Donna Brazile, Hillary Clinton, and the DNC. It's the story most of Washington is talking about. As President Trump headed towards Marine One Friday, he stopped and said this.
You ought to look at Hillary Clinton, and you ought to look at the new book that was just put out by Donna Brazile, where she basically bought the DNC and she stole the election from Bernie.
Criticism is coming from both sides of the aisle after former interim DNC chairperson Donna Brazile published an excerpt of her new book in Politico magazine. It accused the Clinton campaign and the DNC of entering into, in her words, an unethical fundraising agreement before Clinton won the nomination. The agreement in question was leaked to a number of media outlets. First, NBC News. It said in exchange for helping the deeply in debt DNC raise money, staff with Hillary for America would have, quote, joint authority over strategic decisions like staffing, budget, and communications. The agreement said it applied to the general election and not the Democratic primary. It also said the DNC could enter similar agreements with other candidates. Some Democrats say point blank the DNC rigged the election and changes need to be made.
Very quickly, Senator, do you agree with the notion that it was rigged?
Yes.
We must bring about real campaign finance reform. We must get rid of the undemocratic system of superdelegates.
According to the Washington Post, the DNC chair and deputy chair both pledged to reform the party in light of these allegations. The chairman, Tom Perez, promised full transparency in the next election. Eric?
All right, Ellison, thanks so much. Meanwhile, the Washington Post is reporting today that it's releasing another excerpt from Ms. Brazil's new book. The newspaper says that at one point, she seriously considered former Vice President Joe Biden to replace Hillary Clinton as the Democratic nominee. That after Mrs. Clinton fainted, if you may remember that, at the 9/11 ceremony on September 11th back in 2016. Ms. Brazil writing that she considered the switch in part because Clinton's campaign was, in her words, quote, anemic, and had taken on the, quote, odor of failure. But in order to do that, she would have needed the nominees' agreement and the board of the DNC to kick Hillary off the ballot. We will have more on the political fallout from these stunning new allegations from a book straight ahead here on the Fox News Channel. Arthel?
Eric, we now go to the other side of the aisle, and the GOP's long-awaited tax overhaul plan finally released Thursday. Republicans touting it as the biggest tax reform bill in decades. Garrett Tinney is live in our D.C. bureau with the details. Hi, Garrett.
Hey, Arthel. House Republican leaders say they are confident that they will be able to get tax reform passed by Thanksgiving and that the Senate will then be able to send a bill to the president's desk by Christmas. That is a lot to get done in such a short amount of time, though, but the quick pace is also part of their strategy in order to limit lobbying efforts by interest groups to get their own special exemptions and benefits added to the bill. Here's a bit of what the GOP's plan currently looks like. The current 7 tax brackets is reduced to 5, with the highest remaining at just over 39%. The standard deduction is doubled for families to $24,000. The child tax credit also increases from $1,000 to $1,600. The rules for 401k contributions stay the same as well. And the plan also eliminates deductions for state and local taxes and lowers the cap on the mortgage interest deduction, cutting it in half from $1 million to $500,000. Those changes will have a big impact on folks living in states with high taxes and high real estate prices, such as New York and New Jersey. And a handful of Republican lawmakers from those states have said unless changes are made to those deductions, they're likely going to vote no against the GOP's tax bill.
We should continue the deductibility of state and local taxes. It's been in the tax code since 1913. We send a lot more revenue to Washington than we receive back, and I don't want to exacerbate that situation.
House leadership has said that they are open to making changes, but it's not clear if re-adding those deductions is one of them. The administration maintains, though, that even in its current form, the GOP plan will help the middle class.
The president has said what we're really focused on is cutting out a lot of the exemptions, simplifying the tax, and what he wants to do is a middle-income tax cut. And to the extent that in those